Hey, it's Whitney from Kefir Love, and in this video I'm going to tell you why kefir is called the gateway cultured food. So kefir is called the gateway cultured food because it is a really great entry point to fermented foods. Now, if you don't know about fermented foods, or you've never had cultured foods, or even thought about making it yourself, then count you as one of many, because that was me not too long ago. I didn't grow up drinking kefir or making fermented foods or eating sauerkraut or any of those things. I grew up just in a really normal home where we just ate really normal traditional food. I didn't start drinking kefir because I wanted to explore all of these new foods, or to try to make my own pickles or sauerkraut, or get into some of the Asian kind of fermented foods. Like I didn't even know about any of those. The reason I started drinking kefir was because of health reasons. After a really difficult pregnancy, I found out I had a pretty bad gut imbalance. And so in searching for a solution for that health problem, I found kefir. Now, I started making my own kefir and it helped my health tremendously and it cured my gut problems. But kefir taught me everything about cultured foods. So I'll tell you 3 reasons why kefir is the perfect entry food into the world of cultured foods. First, kefir is so easy to make. You don't have to have any special cooking talents or any knowledge about fermented foods. All you have to have is a kefir starter called a kefir grain. Now, when I first heard this, I thought it was some type of like rice grain, like a wheat berry that you soak in your milk, but that's not it at all. It's a culture or a living colony of bacteria and yeast, a SCOBY. You may have heard that from, if you're familiar with kombucha. So a SCOBY is the thing that houses the bacteria and ferments the milk. So you need a kefir grain, and you put this kefir grain into milk, a jar of milk, put it in there, and then you wait about 24 hours. And then all you have to do is strain the grains out, use a strainer, get the grains out, and then you have kefir. It's so easy, and there's just 3 simple steps. You soak the grains, you wait 24 hours, and you strain the grains out. And then you have your first batch of kefir ready. You put your grains into another jar of milk and you start another batch of kefir. So my second point is that kefir grains are really resilient. I like to think of them as kind of like a house plant, and I am like not a house plant person. I kill plants all the time, and I always want to be that house plant person, but I'm forgetful and I forget about them, and that's why they die. But kefir grains are way easier than houseplant because they are so resilient. If you forget about them, or if you neglect them a little bit, or you mess something up, like it's really difficult to kill them. I've left some kefir grains in the fridge for several months, and you put them right back in milk and they'll ferment your milk the first time. They'll make kefir. During the winter months, sometimes I ferment the milk in the oven where the temperature is a little more regulated. And one time my husband turned the oven on and baked the grains. He didn't know they were in there. He baked them. These kefir grains were baked in the oven. Like the glass jar was fine, but the lid had melted off, and the kefir grains inside, like they looked a little funny. And so I didn't know what to do with them, so I just put them in the fridge for a while, thinking, oh, maybe that would be a fun science experiment. And of course, I forgot about them. Several months later, I took them out, these baked kefir grains, and put them in milk, and they started fermenting milk right away, which just blew my mind because, a lot of other cultures are really sensitive. So the last reason why kefir is such a great entry point into cultured foods is because it's really easy to tell when it's done. So when I make my kefir, I can always tell when it's done just by looking at it. So when kefir ferments, it turns the sugars into alcohols. And what that does is it starts to it starts to curdle the milk. The whey will start to separate from the rest of the milk. And what happens is you will start to see little pockets of whey forming around the jar. Kefir also ferments in much shorter time than many other fermented foods. Kefir usually takes about 24 hours, and other fermented foods usually takes, anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks, depending on what it is, and some foods much longer than that. So basically, kefir is a really easy cultured food to learn because kefir grains are really forgiving for those of us that are just starting to learn. Super simple to make. When you're ready and you feel like you feel like you start to understand what cultured foods really are, then you can branch out into the world of other cultured foods and start to enjoy those too. So head to kefirlove.com if you want to know more. And of course, comment below if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help.